Hello, everyone. We're going to start in a couple of minutes. We are just letting everyone in, and we will begin shortly. Good afternoon, and thank you for attending our last session for this year's Arts in the Libraries virtual festival. This afternoon's session is discovering the scores and recordings of 21st century composers in the ODU Music Library. As a reminder, you can submit questions throughout the session, which we will be answering at the end of the presentation, and we'll get to as many as time permits. Elizabeth M. Hogue is the Arts and Humanities Librarian for Old Dominion University Libraries, located in Norfolk, Virginia. Elizabeth works as a liaison for 6 departments in the College of Arts and Letters, including the Institute of Humanities. Elizabeth's experience in libraries is diverse with interests in reference, teaching and learning, media, leadership, and equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives. Today's presentation is a virtual experience uncovering the score and recording collections of 21st century composers located in the ODU Music Library. Elizabeth will demonstrate how to search for scores and recordings in both electronic and physical formats. The new music performance collection and the Alexander Street Press electronic collections will be featured. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Elizabeth Hogue.
Well, thank you, Gay. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm honored to be a part of this year's Arts in the Libraries virtual presentation. And that was a wonderful introduction. And as you can see from my slide, I hope everyone can see this. We are going to begin with discovering the scores and recordings of 21st century composers in the ODU Music Library. And what I was thinking about when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for this presentation. For instance, I've been here at Old Dominion University Libraries now I'm going into my 24th year, which is unbelievable to me, actually. And going back in time to when I first started, the Dean Composer's Room inside of the F. Ludwig Dean Performing Arts building was just coming into its own. It was just opening up. It opened back in 1997. And so when I came in 1999, the then university librarian, Jean Major, was really trying to make a push to open up the doors nationally, actually, to make the Dean Composer's Room a well-known name, both in not only the local Virginia libraries, but nationally. So it was one part of my duties, and then it became most of my duties, was to bring in the collections, both specialized as well as circulating collections in the libraries, to bring it out into the light. And what was very appropriate at that time was the fact that the benefactor, Mr. F. Ludwig Dean, was a composer himself. And the main function of the special collections at the time, because he was a composer, was to highlight local composers of Western classical music primarily. And so we developed this sort of umbrella term called contemporary music. So I thought to myself, in trying to figure out what I was doing today, was why don't I highlight what's happening now, kind of do a little bit of a background of what happened before, and then what's happening now within the collections of contemporary music. So my first question to you is, what is contemporary music to you? And if you'd like to use the chat, I'd like to kind of maybe Gay, because I can't see the chat right now, but maybe Gay can kind of highlight what people are typing into the chat. When you hear that phrase, contemporary music, what are, the first things that come into mind?
I'll be here to monitor. So.
Great. Yes, because I can't see a thing, so.
We have one that came in.
Okay.
Classical music.
Classical. Mm-hmm.
Rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
Rap.
Mm-hmm.
Most of what we can hear on the radio.
Absolutely. That's a good one. All encompassing.
Yes. And another, it's more of a question. Do symphonies count?
Yes.
Hip hop and
Yes. Yes. All good. Very, very good. All very good answers. And none of you are wrong. So that's always a good thing when everybody gets to be right. So today we're going to look at what is contemporary music to the ODU Music Library and what that is defined as. What formats are we going to access, and what formats are available in this genre of music. We're going to look at a specialized collection that many of you may not even know we have, and that's the New Music Performance Collection. Then once I go through all those little slides, then I'm going to go and demo to find out how we locate these resources on our website, and then we'll have time to review and ask questions at the end. So that's what I'm hoping to do. So right now, contemporary music, what does it mean to you? And I heard wonderful examples of what that means to you, and it's going to mean something to everyone. And according to the vibraphonist Victor Mendoza from Berklee School of Music, he teaches there, contemporary music is simply put, music performed and created with what is rhythmically, harmonically, and texturally current. So anything that's current at this time. So that's a big, broad umbrella, right? And for us, when we started back in 1999, we, of course, were looking at what our benefactor wanted at that time. And what his main focus was. So at that time, we were focusing on local composers that were providing us with Western classical music, basically. So they were either they were alive at the time and still writing, or they may have just recently passed and then left their collections to us. So that's what we were focusing on back in 1999. So, but the scope right now is actually a little bit broader than that. So today we're looking at the same Western classical contemporary, of course, we're keeping that, but we're branching out to jazz, blues, some popular styles, especially Hampton Roads, and perhaps what I'm hoping to later on in the future is to go into world. So I'm going to show you a little bit of each of those, I hope, as we move along. So a little bit of background. I mentioned Mr. Dean, F. Ludwig Dean. He was our benefactor for the actual room, the Dean Composers Room, and the Performing Arts Building itself. And he was a modern composer influenced by traditional classicism. So I mentioned earlier, 1997 DCR opens. They had some events to commemorate that opening right before I started. And then when I started, many events started to happen to basically as a marketing PR and to hopefully bring in scholars into the special collections room. And we brought in many different composers of the day appeared, both locally as well as nationally. We had people like Chen Yi come in from the Virginia Arts Festival. We even had Philip Glass make an appearance. So we've had some, and these are Western classical, primarily composers, so of the day. And Libby Larson is another one that comes to mind as well. So we've had a lot of these major composers even appear in the DCR, and we welcome them all. So the music special collections consists of local composers in contemporary classical music, and we're hoping to branch out into other musical styles, and it appears that Fred Strong is one of those as well, into doo-wop and so forth. And so his papers are now in the music special collections. ODU is known for specializing in contemporary Western classical music within the Virginia library system. I had noticed in the past, now this was a little while ago, but in directories, we start to appear in Virginia library directories as specializing in contemporary music. So we are known now. So that particular goal has been realized, that we are known for our contemporary collections. One of those collections is the NMPC, the New Music Performance Collections. And that came about again by the previous university librarian, Jean Major, who wanted to have a project that was a cooperative project amongst the Virginia Tidewater Consortium of libraries. And it was to become a holding place to serve music faculty members from nationally, not just Virginia, to help them incorporate and locate new music into their teaching. And as if you know about music departments or schools of music, you know that they have lots of ensembles. So what we were trying to do was hit those faculty members who were performing and conducting these ensembles, and to help them find material to bring in and into their teaching and into their ensembles. So that's what the NMPC was, and it was first had dual purpose. It had 2 copies that were given to us by each of the composers that were donated to us. And one was archival and one was to circulate. But now those 2 have been split off. So now the NMPC is the portion of the split that you are able to actually check out and circulate. So today it is housed in the DCR reading room, sort of apart from the scores that are in the music listening room. So you have to go into the reading room to take a look at those, but it's a very browsable collection. It's in shelving units off to the corner, and you can check these out. They focus on the latest 10 years of a composer's output, and it's going to be chamber music, which is generally 12 instruments or less, and or solo works. Once in a while, some things get through that may be a little bit larger, but for the most part, this is going to be the focus of the NMPC. It does include national and international composers, and new works are added every year. And in fact, I have money set aside for these works, so it will continue to grow. But as I said, it's in a cycle. So every so often, the folks in the music listening room will go through and pull out the ones that are earlier than 10 years in scope, and they will move them into the regular music listening room. So they'll still be, you'll still be able to check them out. They'll just be in a different place. That's all. So they rotate in there. And so again, all scores circulate, which just means the fancy term of that you can check it out. I didn't have a really good photo of the exact placement of where the new music performance collection is housed, but I wanted you to see the doors. And as soon as you go into these doors for the F. Ludwig Dean Composers Room, you would be taking a left into this reading room, as you can see in the picture on the right. And the actual placement of the shelving units is on the other side of this photo. So that's not this side of the photo, but do know that it's there. Now, sometimes the reading room is locked, and you just need to go up to the help desk and say that you want to take a look at the scores of the new music performance collection, so that you can get in and take a look at those. So now let's talk about formats. We talked about new music performance collection, but we have a lot of music scores, not just part of the new music performance collection. In scores, we have probably now close to 4,000 to 5,000 of them. And that also keeps growing. I do order music scores for the collections every year. And so those collections grow. And it's not just in contemporary music, but it's also in all the genres of music from early music on. But we have the music scores like the NMPC, which is in physical format in print. We also have CDs in print. We have the physical format of the DVDs and VHSs, all held in the music listening room, okay, except for the NMPC in the reading room. Now, electronically, you can have access to these, of course, from your own computer. So you don't have to physically go into the Dean Composer's Room music listening area. You can go straight to your laptop and find them. And I'm going to show you where to find these in a bit. But we do have a collection of music scores that are electronic through a subscription database. And we have a lot of different streaming services for both audio and video. So I am going to now do the demonstration. That's it for my talk on that. And I have to stop the share. So there'll be a little bit of a pause, and I'm going to get online for a second. So hold on. Okay. Can everyone see?
Elizabeth, we can
Yeah,
see your screen, but there's some gray
yes.
boxes that is showing a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to, I have to stop the share for a bit because you know what I forgot to do was the check boxes. So I'm going to do it again. Okay, well, they're both checked, so that's good. And now I'm going to do this one thing to hide. And is everything okay now? You shouldn't see the little box on the bottom.
It
Okay.
disappeared, so you're good.
Great, great. Okay, so now you're seeing my screen, and this is the library's website. And where to find the different materials is you're going to start always from the library's website. So everything that I'm talking to you today is starting from the library's website. And one of the first places for finding materials is Monarch One Search, because this is where you're going to find both the electronic versions of items as well as the printed. So this is one place that you're going to want to start with. And librarians, I just want to point out that all of these buttons up here go to Monarch One Search, which is this one search box here. But we like to use the advanced search mode. So you might not have seen this in the past because it hides, but if you actually click on advanced search, it's going to take you directly into Monarch One Search. So now if you can see that we are in Monarch One Search at this point in time. And we like the advanced search mode because we can move and manipulate field labels, and you're going to see all of the different filters and such like that. You can add more lines if you want to, depending on how advanced a topic that you're looking for. Now, when you're looking for music, you notice that up here at the top, right now we're going to set this to everything. Over here off to the right-hand side, for each search that you do, you can manipulate even further. And you notice that there is an audio and a video. But if you also notice as I move along, there isn't anything here specifically that says music scores. So for right now, the system puts music scores under the books category. So we're just going to leave it to everything while we do a search. Now, if you know a particular composer that you want to find out, well, do we have a particular composer in mind? You would switch this over to author for the composer, and then you would type in a particular name. So, and we're going to do that because I had done that before. And this is a contemporary composer, female, and we're going to go ahead and just do a plain search. So we're just looking for everything that the system comes up that this person either wrote either in a book format or as a score or any audio and so forth of items that they wrote. And up here it says that we've retrieved 105 results from this. And if we go to the side, most databases will allow you to filter for more, to filter even further off to the side. So always look for filtering because you don't have to necessarily go through all of the 107 or so that it's listing. So here under resource type is where you're going to see, oh, well, there are 73 scores that are listed within this 100 and so that I've gotten. And it's telling you the different types of resources here and how many are attached to it. So maybe for right now, I just want to see a score. And I'm going to apply the filter. And now I have the 73 come up. Now in Monarch One Search, we're going to get some funny little records that say multiple versions. And so basically this could be the same record, but perhaps in various different formats, or it could be the same book or score, but maybe a different publishing year or publisher and so forth. So that's why they kind of get grouped into this multiple versions category. And I think we had a couple of pages of these multiple versions, and then you start seeing where you're just going to see the score come up. So if I just choose one, and I'm just choosing one out of the blue, the Ballade for solo piano, we're going to get the fact under this center here, under view it, instead of giving us a call number to go view, to go find it in, say, Dean Composer's room, we're going to see that we have an access to the electronic resource. So when we click this particular link, it's going to take us to Classical Scores Library, which is our subscription database for scores from Alexander Street Press, which is the vendor that produces that. Then from here, you're going to see the rest of the details, which to me as a librarian is important, but I also think that as a user, you should also take a look, because again, for musicians, it's also important to note the edition. So this particular composer likes to publish through Chester Music. So you know that this is definitely something from them. It was created in 2009, for instance, and it's going to be in the Classical Scores Library. And I can go ahead and click on that link, and it should take you directly to the page in Classical Music Scores Library so that you can see the score. And so this is one way to actually not even have to go find and remember the name of the database, but you just have to go in directly to Monarch OneSearch, and it will give you the link to the actual piece of music. So this is what, if some of you are unfamiliar with music scores, you're getting the, this is each bar of music. And in this case, because it's piano, we're just getting one instrument, the right hand, the left hand, and what it's doing. And it's giving direction as to how to play this piece. Okay, if you've never seen that before. And what I also like about it is that you can come and see more information over here to the left-hand side about when it was actually composed, which was in 2005 for this particular piece. Okay, and went to the different, went too far. Okay, so we're back. And if I go back in here, and I don't know if they're all going to be this way, but yes, a lot of them are going to be held in the various different volumes of the Classical Scores Library. Okay. Now, if I change this around and instead do a title search, because I want to see everything that's in the New Music Performance Collection. This is all you need to do to find out what we actually have from Monarch OneSearch. Instead of going physically over there and just browsing, you could also basically browse in Monarch OneSearch for the New Music Performance Collection, and you can do a search this way. And so it says 704 results, and some of these are multiple versions, but I just wanted to show you a particular record so you can see where to find. This is John Duffy. Okay, well, this one is not showing what we want, but it's something that you need to be aware of, especially with music scores, things that are newly purchased or newly received. Many of them kind of stick around the Bibliographic Services Department, which is basically a cataloging department, and they're being processed in some way. We don't know if they were just received at this point, or if they're going through a bindery process or not. Usually if they're away, it'll say in bindery, but this is telling me that it's still being processed to be put on the shelves. So that's always a good thing to note so that you understand where something is. So let's look at this one. Okay, good. This is a good one. This particular middle section is always going to tell you in Monarch One Search where to find something. So whether it's the link to the actual electronic resource, or if it's physically here, this is where it's going to be given to you. And the whole call number, which will have an M call number in this case, is something that you need to jot down so that you can go and browse the shelves in the music library and pull it out yourself. So with the scores, it is a browsable library for the most part, and you just go and you pull it out and then go to the music library help desk and check it out at the desk there. But the one thing I want to point out that I think people miss very often is this section in here. And this is where you're going to note that it's NMPC. And that's important so that you can find it. So it still has this call number, but you need to go into the reading room where the NMPC shelves are in order for you to pull it and then check it out. The other thing that's important is its status. So if you're already attuned to looking at status to see if something is in place, which means it should be on the shelf, or if it has a date, that means it's checked out for that date. That's going to tell you whether it's worth actually going to retrieve it or not. You want to see the words item in place for that. And then an NMPC will tell you where to go. If you don't see an NMPC there, then it's in the regular shelves in the music library. Okay. Now for, I'm going to go back to University Libraries now, page again. And I'm going to show you a guide, the library guides under Arts and Humanities. All of these guides, except for the art, are ones that I maintain myself. These are all my different departments and so forth. So of course there is one for music, and I just want to point out this is how you navigate all of these guides. All of the guides that are produced will have a person that maintains it, and that person's name and contact are always on the guides. This is the one for music, and under composer resources, because the NMPC is primarily composer driven, the information about the NMPC, it has its own page. So if you forget a little bit about what it's all about and a little bit of its history here, the Contemporary Composers Collection is the piece that was the archival piece. So that's its name in the Music Special Collections, and its name, NMPC, is the one that you can check out. So it does have its own page. And the other thing I really want to show you is the section for scores, audio, and video. So if you wanted to get the direct links, you don't remember the name, go to the library guide for music, and under scores, audio, and video, you will see tabs here giving you links to all of the music-oriented listings. Okay, so audio, video, and scores are listed on this page. And so this will give you the direct links for all of those. Our newest link for video is Medici TV EDU with Jazz Plus. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that for now. We'll start with the video. And this is our newest acquisition. We had some free trials for a bit, but this is the one that we were finally able to get recently in this past year. So I'm very happy. And as you see, as I scroll down, what was playing at the top will stay in its own player. So you never, so if you go looking around and browsing while you're listening, and it'll maintain the view for you as you move through the whole website. So I thought that was kind of neat. They're always producing something. I'm on their email list, and anyone can be on their email list, and I get emails practically every day on something that's happening on their site. So they're constantly adding to it. There's always live streaming that occurs. Yes, you can go to a Medici TV YouTube page, which you'll get some of the freebies, but a lot of those freebies are just like little bits of things. So it's not going to give you the whole concert. For instance, you have to be on our page, our service through Old Dominion University for you to view the whole concert. And as you can see up at the top, you maneuver up here through concerts, operas, ballets, documentaries, masterclasses, jazz, and their calendar. And you can search. Now, searching is a little more primitive, I've noticed, with this particular database, because they're not giving the option for an advanced search mode at this point. So you do have to put in something in the search box that you're going to be looking for. If you click on, let's say, concerts, you want to see what's available in concerts. They'll tell you at the moment that they have 1,335 concerts. And then at this point, you do the filtering from there. So if you have a particular composer that you're looking for, maybe even a particular piece, but at this point, it'd be composer, you would need to locate them from the A to Z listing here. Okay, and it'll tell you how many of each one. So you sort of have to know your composers, especially if you're looking for contemporary composers to, so I see that Elliott Carter, for instance, there are two, and he is a more contemporary composer. And you can see that there are two. And this one, this person, Amard, is a pianist, and he did a concert which included Elliott Carter's works. So you can go ahead and click on the link to that and go down the program to see where Elliott Carter starts to appear and say, okay, let me listen and see some of these. So let's see. There we go. Okay, so that's a little taste of Medici. And I'm going to go back and classical music and video, I'm going to show you in a different way. So in audio streaming, music and performing arts is basically a collection, like a discovery service, such as our Monarch One search. And it's going to include all of the Alexander Straight Press. It's like a one-stop shop of all of these that are here. So you can go individually into each one. Okay, like there's one specifically for jazz and so forth, or you can go to music and performing arts and do a search for all of the collections that we subscribe to. So if you go to show all the collections, we have, as I said, almost everything for music except for one. Okay, so all of these collections we have, and it's going to search all of them when you do a search. So if we go back to our female, and I guess I have the tab lock, and okay. Okay. So 154 results come up with this composer's name. Some of it is going to come up from our ebook collection. We have a reference collection as well in music. And so her name pops up in that. So it's in the Baker's Biographical Dictionary of Musicians, Volume 5. So if you want to know more about this composer, you can look her up there. And then we start getting into various different types of resources. Looks like this one is more of a recording. Then we have a score, another score. So it's just going to pull us into a variety of items in just like a one-stop shop. So I do recommend, if you're not sure, exactly where to go, is to go through here. And then you get everything whenever you put the name in. Okay. There is a way to go through. You can go through by genre. And that'll, right now, it's a filter for what we already have up here, where we've already searched, excuse me. Okay. So anyhow, I want to save time for questions. So let's do a real quick review before I do that. I'm going to go back to our libraries page. So just to do a quick review of where to go, we have Monarch OneSearch, which is our discovery tool. My advice, my recommendation is to always go to the advanced search mode. And then if you are looking for a particular composer, to use the author creator and typing in their last name first. Okay, if you have a name like Smith or Jones, definitely put in their first name as well, but start with their last name first. Okay. If you're looking for the new music performance collection, all you need to do is switch that over to title. And I put it in double quotes because that's signaling to the software that you're looking for each word adjacent to each other. So new music performance collection will be next to each word next to each other in a phrase. So that's why I did the double quotes earlier. Okay. And going back, the library guides under Arts and Humanities will have the music guide, and scores and audio and video are here. And then we just don't have time in this session to go to anything else, but the new music performance page is also here to let you know a little bit more about that as well. Okay, and I was in earlier doing a search for more popular music. The other part of the music and performing arts search, discovery search, I'll call it that, is that's where all the popular music lies. And so you will get jazz separately in a separate collection, but the popular collection is built in to the discovery service. So you're not going to get that unless you do a search in that discovery service for those. So I had pulled out Dennis DeYoung, and I just wanted to show you that, yes, can get popular music too. Okay. So I think now we can have time for some questions, Gay, and you'll have to let me know if anyone has any questions.
I think Laura's gonna be helping with the questions.
Okay, she here? Great.
I am here.
Yay.
There I am. It took my internet took a minute, but yes, questions are open in the chat. But we have a couple from the audience to start off with. But first, I really want to say thank you, Elizabeth, for that fascinating presentation. So
You're welcome.
The first question we have is for students out there who are wondering, can you, I guess, how you did as a library, or how you became interested in this form of scholarship and music and arts librarianship, and what was your academic path to get here?
Great question. I didn't talk too much about myself, except that I've been here for a long time. I actually have a background in music and theater arts. So I call myself more of a performing artist. And I have a bachelor's in drama, and I went to the New England Conservatory of Music as well as a vocal performance major, but decided to switch it out because I really had a love not only for classical music, but I was very eclectic in my tastes. So I loved musical theater. That was how I started when I was younger. And I loved classical. My voice was, I'm a vocal person, and my voice tended to go in the direction of classical. So I really built up and worked with vocal coaches and vocal teachers to build up the voice for classical music. But in my heart, I really loved just performing on stage, and it didn't matter whether it was just in music or not. So I did get a degree in theater arts in drama, and do a lot of work in that field separately as well as conjunctively in librarianship. So I got to librarianship basically through my mother, and through her eyes. I always loved research, and of course I loved reading and books. And so I was intrigued by, as I was growing up, with various different fields of study that had a lot of research involved. So my mother had worked in a library as she was growing up. So she encouraged me to also do the same when I was in college. So I started working in libraries way back when, back in the, gosh, I'm going to age myself, 1980s. So in the 80s, I was working as a student assistant, and then I moved into being a clerk, and then a library assistant, which is the classified staff ranks. And then I was looking for pursuing, after getting the bachelor's degree, for a master's. I knew I wanted to keep pursuing a degree. So it didn't work out for me as well to move into the arts with a master's. So San Jose State was my alma mater at the time, and they had a wonderful library school. So I decided that I was going to go in that direction and use both my skills. And at first I was even interested, even when I was in library school, I was interested in the public library system because of the children's area. I thought I could use my sort of performing skills in doing storytelling and doing that sort of oral traditions with the kids, but it just didn't happen that way. I just ended up staying in academia, and I started getting more experience at San Jose State. Even after I got my degree, they helped me a lot in pursuing the academia route instead. So I just stayed in there, and I came to my very first position in librarianship as a full-time position was at the University of Southern Maine. So I went from California all the way to Maine in the 90s, and that position started me off in my music librarianship career, because that was part of my position, was to help out with the collections for music in that position. And from there, in the late 90s, I came here. So, and I've been in the music, working with the music department here, which is now the School of Music. And I'm excited about that transition for them. And I've, just been here for 23 years. So that kind of is how I sort of got here and became interested in the research of music librarianship. Hope that answers.
I think it does. Thank you. And I think that will definitely help others who are interested in that field. Kind of,
yeah, you just
how
never
they can
know where
carve
your
their
life
path.
is going to take you, right? So
Exactly. We have another question. So, with so many streaming music available or resources increasingly accessible online, what are some of the challenges in promoting music collections, such as the one on 21st century composers or any other similar collections at the ODU Music Library and special collections?
that's right. That's right. Well, that's a great question. And for me, it's a challenge with the Spotify and Pandora's and just keeping up the collections and basically you're spending state funds to build collections. So not only do we have money to spend for CDs and DVDs, how long, the question always is as well, you know, they're sort of going by the wayside, everything is getting digital. And the point is for me is, and I didn't really get this right away. This is something I've learned throughout the years of doing this too. And because I certainly didn't think of this when I was a student, like a theater arts student or a music student, was the importance of finding and listening to lots of different ways for that particular piece. So different conductors, different vocalists, different instrumentalists that are playing the same piece will interpret it differently. And even to the point of the how do I want to put this, the actual label that it comes out in, so could be different, and that so there'll be different quality to it, and whether or not you want to listen to the quality of an LP versus the quality of a digitized version versus, so there's a lot of stuff going on. For teaching purposes, we want to make sure our students always hear the best of the best, but we also, to me, should listen to even the mediocre, because you have to get an ear for both so that you know this is the best of the best versus just mediocre or not. And it's not to belittle anyone at all. It's just that there's different versions that are important to get into your ear set. So if you're going to be go into this field of music, you need to hear the differences. So when you're on Spotify, you hear one person more than likely. It's not going to, may not give you all of the different choices that you might be able to hear at your own library system. So that's, to me, that is a basic difference, and why I keep wanting to put money into purchasing both in CD as well as purchasing database subscriptions, which is a harder purchase for us, for those of you who don't know, because those purchases are annual purchases. And we always have to, it's not like you pay for something, like you go to, when we used to go to Tower Records and purchase something in our hand. Now it's Amazon, right? So you purchase it and you get it, and that's done, it's yours. Well, with the digital versions of things and the ones that I showed you today through the Music and Performing Arts through Alexander Street Press, we pay for that every year to keep it going, to keep access to it. So we don't really own it anymore outright. So yeah, it's challenging for us. When do you say no? When do you stop getting something in an LP, for instance? The LP is coming back. People are purchasing turntables again because they want to listen to their LPs, and they're buying LPs because you can hear that little scratchy noise, and it's just different in sound than the digitized sound. So it's, again, it's tuning your ear to the differences that different conductors will do for a piece, and even in the other popular music as well. You know, you're going to hear the differences in someone who sings this version of this song versus that version, the same song, but it's a different version. It's a different person giving their interpretation of it. So I don't know if that answers, but that's the what I thought of firsthand when you mentioned that question.
I think that answers it. I also really liked the topics being chosen by different composers as well. For example, poems from the Holocaust, that has been done a few different times by different composers, and it's always really interesting to hear the differences between how they interpret that topic.
Absolutely, and just many Western classical composers like to use poetry, for instance, and the same poetry can be done by different composers, and just the interpretation of it can be different. You see different images coming out in your mind when you're listening to it.
I think we have time for one last question, because I know this one's going to be short.
Okay.
Are there instruments available for playing inside the music library?
You mean for checkout? Is that what that's?
I think that's
okay.
what they mean.
Okay. No, the music library does not have any instruments to check out. That normally has been more of the School of Music, or a School of Music purview. And if they sometimes, and I don't think our School of Music does this, but I could be wrong. So someone can, who's in the audience right now might want to update me on that. But, sometimes they have their own little instrumental library where they pass out music for the choir and the ensembles to their students, and it's like a little rental library. They may include some instruments as well, but I don't think that ODU School of Music provides the instruments.
I honestly cannot recall. I don't, maybe there may be some kind of program for the students themselves or faculty, but for anyone outside the program, I don't believe that there is. But with community music, there may be something along those lines too. But I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, so that, and I did get clarification. It wasn't meant to. It was just meant in general, but checking them out would be great.
Yes.
It would be.
Absolutely. It brings me back to my elementary school days, where I got handed over an instrument and say, "You want to learn how to play this?" I said, "Sure." Absolutely.
I think that is. Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, buying your own instrument when you're young and you're still kind of feeling out what if it's something you want to pursue, it's nice to have a program like that so that you can just kind of try it out, because instruments are expensive, as we know. So.
Yeah, I did remember in middle school they had a program where all the high schoolers would come in and show off their instruments, and you could try out different instruments and see kind of what you liked. So I think they still, I'm hoping, I'm not sure with COVID times, but I really hope that they are doing something similar like that.
Absolutely. I hope so too, because with all the cuts that we seem to hear about, and music and art tend to be the ones that get cut. So, but yeah, music is very important in our lives. And I hope that today, before you all leave, that this at least opens up something for you, so that it will get you into these databases and just browse. I didn't mention anything particular, like you can make your own playlists. You can create clips of things if you want to show a clip in your PowerPoint. I mean, the Alexander Street Press allows you to do that. The Medici does not. So if you have wanting to do those kinds of things, you can do that with the Alexander Street Press databases, but you do have to sign in. So you have to kind of create your space with that, with Alexander Street Press, and you just have to write it down, jot it down somewhere so that you remember it. And every time you enter into an Alexander Street Press database, you just have to remember to sign in, and then you can, you know, create your own playlists and save tracks. And if it's in video, you want to maybe just do a little clip, and it will allow you to do that. So I just wanted to point that out too.
Absolutely.
Have fun. Have
Mhm.
fun. If you just even want to use it, you're not into, you know, you're not into anything specific. You just want to have some music in your background while you're studying or what have you, or even have a get together. Now people are getting together back again. If you know, just want music, you're a student, you're a faculty, staff, you have access to our stuff. So use it. I need to see the, you know, people are using it too, so that we can keep them. That's another important thing about it as well, is we need to see our databases being used so that we don't cut them because of non-use. But thank you so much for having me here today. I enjoyed it, and I hope you all got something out of it as well.
Yeah, thank you again, Elizabeth, and everyone else for joining us today. This was our final presentation of our week-long virtual festival. In the chat, I'm going to put the link to the rest of the festival, and feel free to check out all of our incredible presentations, virtual tours. We have virtual tours of the music library in the Dean Composer's Room, and we do have different performances, including 2 performances from Elizabeth too. And we will also be sharing the recordings on the festival website when they become available. So please check it out. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone, and thank you.
And thank you for being here. Bye-bye.
Christian, thank you for all your help.
Yes, thank you.
You have been wonderful.